Hello. Okay, I don't have like a super concrete plan for this video. Is what I said the first time, but now I have tried to make the video once, and the audio mixing is terrible, so we're doing it again. And the music stopped. Great. Okay. I hate this computer. Okay. We'll go on without it. So, I'm gonna be talking about some mostly out-of-game things that you can do to improve faster at Strive. And this is focused on like people that like want to improve. The music back. Okay. And the important thing about that is that like if you're just playing the game for fun, most of this isn't stuff that you necessarily have to worry about. It's still definitely stuff that you can consider. But I would say if you're just playing for fun, you can kind of ignore it. So the first thing, and the reason why I have these two characters on screen right now, is pick one character and stick to them. At basically every level of play, picking a single character and sticking to them will dramatically increase the rate that you improve it. Also, I'm sorry, that was probably terribly loud. And I'm using these two characters to explain that because Chip and Ino are both defined by the game as rushdown characters, but they play such vastly different game plans that it honestly feels wrong that the game considers them the same thing. Chip is the character that mostly plays a patient with punish game, where he kind of, he waits around, he plays footsies, and then when the time is right, he goes in for a whiff punish and then starts running his stagger pressure. And Ino, on the other hand, is a character that, while Chip has some of the best movement, Ino's movement is very limited and restrictive. She's forced into using a hover dash that enables her potent mix-up game where she can do instant overheads. But it makes it so that, like, Ino has some of the weakest whiff punish game in the entire roster. And she oftentimes has to rely on things like dive kicks or a low profile move to get in neutral. And that's so fundamentally different from how Chip plays the game that trying to understand the game from both of these characters' perspectives and how they approach things is, at the very least for someone who's still, learning, pretty infeasible. At best, you are slowing yourself down by a lot. And by instead choosing to stick to just Chip, for example, you can have a much easier time learning how to play the game and what other characters do and how to deal with that. Even looking at top-level play, there are so few people who play multiple characters. There's Tigerpop, plays Happy Chaos and ABBA, Nitro plays Giovanna and Jacko, Andross plays Potemkin and Leo, just to name some examples. But most players stick to a single character. And even, for example, recently, Zondo, who played Asuka for the longest time, dropped the character entirely to just play Chip. And that's a big, that's like, he had years of experience on Asuka, but he just, I'm not going to speak for him, but I would imagine that part of that decision-making was because of an understanding that it's easier to learn when you're playing the game from a single character's perspective, rather than trying to understand and maintain his understanding of the game as Asuka while also learning how to play it as Chip. And so that's the first point. And the rest of the points are... That first point was, like, kind of it's not like a gameplay piece of advice. I'm not like telling you, oh, you can mash here, you can fuzzy block this. It was like, but it was still gameplay related. The rest of these are very much not. And they're more focused on... This first one is kind of a social thing, but I really think that it's so important to meet more people in the community. It sounds silly to say that it allows you to improve, but it really does. Talking to more people, getting their perspectives on the game, learning what they do in situations, what do you do here, what do you do there. And I'm not just saying that you should meet people because you think they would help you improve at Guilty Gear Strive. I'm not. You should meet people because people are cool. And the community is cool. The best part of the FGC is the C, the community. Talking in Discord servers like the Strive Discord or even friend group Discords. And, like, learning what you can do in situations, talking to people about their characters, what they think about matchups. Having those other pairs of eyes on things can really improve your understanding of the game. And I think it's very important, and it's something that I did a lot early on. Even just joining the Discord for your character can help a lot. And that kind of leads into the next point, which is that don't just grind tower. And you might be wondering, you know, how does that relate to the last point, but it's like... The thing about tower is that tower is good for learning how to, adapt quickly, right? You can use tower to learn how to adapt quickly, because you only have 3 games to play someone, and learn what they're doing. It's a nice way to practice for, like, the hecticness of playing in a bracket and learning really quickly how to beat your opponent. But what tower doesn't give you is someone to ask for advice after the games. Meeting people and talking to them and saying, hey, do you want to run some games and can I get some advice after, is so incredibly important, in my opinion. And it's something that I personally prioritized a lot. It sounds weird to bring it up as like a, you know, like a tip and trick. Make friends. But it really is a great way to improve at the game. Hanging out, like, even just hanging out with friends in, like, a Discord call while you're playing the game will improve your mood while playing a lot. It sounds silly, but I genuinely believe in this as a method of improvement. But the big thing is that, by having someone to talk to after your games are done, you can get advice, and they can say, hey, here's something that you did poorly that you can improve on. When I played Kid Dracula for the first time, he told me after the set, every time that I whiffed a button, I would backdash afterwards. And I didn't notice. I genuinely, it sounds silly to say, I had no idea I was doing that. It was something that I couldn't have noticed just grinding tower all day. It's something that I could only have gained through playing someone and saying, hey, do you have any advice? And you can get that on tower, but the kind of, like, the level of advice you get through playing someone that you know and are talking to, it's much better. Okay, the last point is strictly just kind of a mentality thing. And that's to be humble, but don't beat yourself up. And I say this as someone who is infamous for beating themselves up. Don't beat yourself up. It's not worth it. There's no point. But let's talk about the first part first. Be humble. What does that, mean in an FGC context? It doesn't necessarily just mean, oh, don't say your opponent is the worst player to ever play the game, and that you're God's greatest gift to mankind. It can also mean that understanding that you're not perfect, and learning to not expect perfection from yourself. As anyone who's ever learned speedrunning will tell you, a lot of people who practice something go in with the expectation of making no mistakes. And that's just a really bad thing to do. Also, sorry, I'm just doing random soul stuff. I don't play this character, but I think he's cool. Well, he was cool. Anyways. Going in with the expectation of, I'm going to do everything perfectly, and I will win all my characters winning matchups, is a recipe for disaster. You will only end up upset. And that last point is something that I see a lot of people struggle with, myself included at times. A matchup being winning doesn't mean that you can't lose it. If fighting games... If bad matchups were genuinely unwinnable, fighting games would just be rock, paper, scissors on the character select screen. And that wouldn't be fun. No one would like that, you know? It's okay to get gapped. It happens to the best of us. It's part of being humble is understanding, hey, that person's better than me. And that's okay. It's okay to accept that, hey, that person gapped me. They're really good. I should ask them for advice and say, hey, I know this matchup, or I hear this matchup is winning for my character. What should I do in this situation that I'm struggling with? That's how you improve. You don't improve through telling yourself, if I lose this matchup, I suck. Despite what people on Twitter say, losing a winning matchup doesn't mean you suck. All it means is that you got gapped, and that's okay. People put too much stock into the idea that if you win, like if your character wins a matchup, you just should win. But that's not true, and that wouldn't be fun. And like, I don't know, it just wouldn't be fun that way. People like fighting games because you can win, even when it doesn't seem like you can't. People like fighting games because there's a challenge to it. It's not guaranteed. There's room for you to make mistakes. There's room for your opponent to make really smart plays. It's through this that, fighting games are fun. Don't beat yourself up. It sounds counterintuitive to stay humble, but also, maintain self-esteem and confidence, but they are cut from the same cloth. Expecting yourself to never lose a losing matchup is not being humble. In fact, it's expecting perfection of yourself, which is entirely unreasonable. I mean, maybe I'm misunderstanding humbleness, but the point remains. You're not perfect. No one ever will be, and that's fine. It's okay to lose sometimes, and not beat yourself up about it. I've gone 0-50 against people plenty of times. I've gone 0-100 before. It happens, and it's okay. It's part of the learning process. Danger. Losing is natural. You should use it not as a chance to beat yourself up, but as a chance to learn and improve. Because if you take every loss as a sign that you're just worthless and will never amount to anything, you're not learning. You're just using it as an excuse to beat yourself up. Take a loss as a chance to learn. I think that's everything I have to talk about. I went through all my bullet points. So, best of luck out there. Stay humble. Don't beat yourself up, please. I say this to myself as much as I say this to everyone watching. And go make some friends. They're the best. So many people that I've met in the FGC are some of the coolest people I've ever met. And people that I'm incredibly grateful to know and be friends with. Have a good day.